And that was a great panel discussion and lots of food for thought. And I was definitely left with a similar reflection to you, I think, Liz, of thinking lots of people live in their own wind tunnels, and wind tunnels are very noisy, to your point, Chris. So people's lives are often very, very noisy. So, you know, which wind tunnel are we going into? Are we going into other people into their wind tunnel? And how noisy is it in their wind tunnel for our message around moving to resonate for them and to cut through? And we know across GM, it can be a very noisy place collectively, can't it? So yeah, step into each other's wind tunnels and find a way to block out the noise. So thank you all. I'm going to hand over to Hayley and also to Tim, who are going to give us some sort of reflections really on the day as a whole, and then hopefully go into some breakouts so you can all just chat to somebody else for 5 minutes on your key reflections, takeaways and commitments going forward. So thank you to everybody on the panel. Thank you, Liz, Chris, Shamim, Andy and Katie for a brilliant job. And over to you, Hayley.
Thanks, Eve, and thanks for a really fantastic session. And I personally just appreciated for the first time today sitting back and listening and actually being able to take in what was being said. It was really, really great session. And I said in the chat, there's a lot to absorb there. I definitely will be listening back and also really keen to write that up as a blog piece. So if you have said something in the chat that you don't want included in that blog, please shout up and let us know. But in terms of my final reflections on the day, I think I was just thinking back earlier about when we launched the GM Moving Strategy in 2017 and the real differences that I've felt between that day and this day here. Last time round, Chris was, I think, in this second or third day in the job. It was raining. We were standing in Exchange Square. And it really was, if I'm really honest, back then it felt like the most important thing was to take this conversation into the big rooms, into the Health and Social Care Partnership Board, into the Combined Authority and the Reform Board, and take this conversation and agenda to the big cheeses, as Stephen mentioned this morning. And what I've really enjoyed about the journey over the last 4 years and where we are today is that the big cheeses are in the room with us, leading alongside us. It feels like a much more equal space. The voices of people at all layers of the system in all their diversity from all the places around Greater Manchester. Actually, when you really listen to what people are saying, there's such synergy, there's such commonality in what people are saying about what matters and how we need to do this work together. So I really think that, we've come a long way since Yvonne and Stephen first convened in 2015. And I know we've still got a really long way to go. It's a 10-year strategy. There's an awful lot of change to make to really succeed in achieving active lives for all. But I feel like we've got, all the conditions are set as we come out of the pandemic to do that, to build back better and build back fairer, and make sure that we don't just get, our graph shows a big drop off during COVID in terms of active lives. We want to build back, we want to get back to the point of where we were on the graph, where we were increasing active lives faster than the national rate. But we don't just want to do that with the same old people. We want to make sure it's more diverse. We want to make sure that we close all of those inequality gaps that we have got. So the final thing I would say before I hand over to Tim is what an immense team effort this has been. Phenomenal. And all the way through this, I have again gone back to 2017 when we had 6 weeks to write a strategy. There was nowhere near the level of engagement that we've been able to do this time round. I think it was about 4 of us writing it in a really pressured timescale, which didn't allow for the diversity of voice and the deep listening that we've managed this time round. And that's by design. It's not happened by accident. I've got to make a special mention of the GreaterSport team in this, because GreaterSport play a massive leadership role and support role to GM Moving. They're not the only organisation that do that. We've had people from MGM and GM Active and all the different organisations that are around TFGM and so on today. But the GreaterSport core team have made a phenomenal amount of work happen in a very short space of time, particularly in these last few weeks. So I want to thank everybody on the team who's done that, and particularly the control room today. They're pedaling furiously behind the scenes, dealing with the tech and the website and all of the stuff we've launched today. So huge thank you. Particularly, I've got to say thanks to Eve. I mean, she had designed a process here that has really enabled that diversity of voice and has held us to account all the way through. that the sense making and the writing and the listening has been genuinely collaborative and true to our principles. So she deserves huge credit for that, and sometimes making us slow down to really go where we need to go. So thank you. And then thank you to everybody, to all of the speakers, to all of the people who've taken part in all of the sessions, to all of the thousands of people that have got involved in the engagement process to date. But this is, I think Katie said at the beginning, it's just a day. This is just another touchstone in a very long journey that we've been on together. And it's another moment in time on a very long journey that we've got to make together. And so today is really important and significant, and we will look back to it again. But at the same time, it is just really a launch pad for us going, you know, further, faster, deeper, fairer, and all of those words that we come back to all of the time. So please do get involved, do, you know, stay involved. And it doesn't need to come through us all of the time, the people on these screens. You know, it's about connecting to each other. So please follow up with each other and play your part in GM Moving in Action. And I'll pass over to Tim Crabbe, who hopefully is ready to come in.
Thanks, Hayley, and thanks everybody as well for any contributions today and what's been an absolutely fascinating event. And I suppose I've just been asked to sort of reflect on, yeah, just what are the kind of some of the key threads that might have emerged from the various conversations. And I was a little bit daunted by that task, I must admit, when I was kind of looking at the agenda for the day and how many people are involved and making contributions. And then certainly as we went through the sort of first session this morning, watching the chat explode with all sorts of comments and interventions, and thinking about, well, there's going to be, you know, so much to need to sort of reflect upon. And whilst that's clearly the case, what's really struck me today is the way in which certain golden threads have just sort of continued just to emerge, which to me was reflecting some sense of maturity with GM Moving and the strategy, in the sense that whilst I don't think anybody here is trying to sort of suggest that they've got all the answers, there is a kind of an emergent understanding of the ways to work and the key things to bear in mind. And I kind of go back to that first session, and just to sort of, you know, illustrate maybe a kind of few points from the 3 different sessions. And that first session, just whilst people were talking about examples of practice, what was really coming out was the significance and importance of listening in an authentic way. And then using that listening to respond to the needs of people, not the needs of providers or the needs of strategists or policymakers, but really coming back, listening, really listening and responding to those needs, and really using that listening to think about how you communicate what it is that you're doing. And just that kind of constant emphasis on involving people is about listening, and really in a kind of deep and authentic fashion. And, you know, through that as well, not being too complacent with the responses that come. I loved the kind of ways in which so many people through the day talked about starting small and taking baby steps and just trying little things. So we've listened, but we're not arrogant enough to think that we have all the answers. So we try, and then we listen again, we test and we listen again before kind of moving forward. And that was kind of a real theme for me from that first session, which then continued through the other sessions. And then as we moved into the afternoon and the session around, you know, I guess around leadership, but it came back to, again, this point, and through the evaluative work we've been doing is very much focused on this concept of strategic leadership enabling collective leadership. And that just came out again and again with all the contributions. It was quite inspiring, really, to hear such, you know, genuinely significant voices within the movement being prepared to say, look, we want to give up leadership. We want to enable leaders across the system, that we understand that the kind of knowledge and ways to operate actually are there on the ground, and thinking about how to achieve that. And again, recognizing that perhaps maybe all those boxes haven't been ticked and there might be work to do to think about how we enable collective leadership. But the aspiration, the kind of understanding that that's the way forward, was absolutely crystal clear in the way that it came through to me, at least. And then I think what I kind of took out of that final session was really the importance of, which brings those other two elements together as well. You know, are these glib words, or can we actually build trust? And everything that was being talked about, from wind tunnels to putting activities on the ground, was really about how we build trust in an authentic way and maintain those relationships so that they are durable and sustainable. And I thought it was quite interesting, really, when Katie sort of intervened in the conversation as well, to sort of reflect on that point around scaling, because obviously we are about building a movement. We want all of this work to grow and to become more expansive, so that more people can lead active lives. But what was seen to be coming out in terms of that challenge, well, how do you scale something that is about listening and taking on the needs of individuals as well as small groups? That absolute fundamental challenge of scale. It struck me that really what had been coming out from the day was the emphasis on the ways of working and the kind of the maturity of thinking about that we are learning about how to do this work, rather than necessarily delivery solutions or interventions or that can kind of be prescribed in any fashion. The kind of what there's the potential to scale is this kind of understanding of the importance of listening, the importance of enabling collective leadership, and the importance of being durable and building trust and delivering what was agreed and what people said that they would do, so that we move forward with that kind of confidence. I just wanted to sort of to end not on in any way in a kind of a negative way, but was just to sort of pose a question. Through our evaluative work, we've kind of identified some of what we would see as the sort of enablers of GM moving and enablers of active lives, and we talked about many of these here in terms of involving local people and strategic leadership, enabling collective leadership. But I think it's also worth just reflecting on something that Shameen sort of pointed towards, and perhaps remains something of a challenge, is all of these things are seem kind of clear in terms of the direction that we could go in, but we should also recognise that there are still blockages and barriers, and that maybe GM moving as a movement in some ways ahead of the game. Sport England, with its efforts around uniting the movement, has put forward some powerful directions in terms of where we'd like to go. Are the processes, the institutions, the governance, the infrastructure yet caught up with that? And what work do we need to do to ease that process of transforming governance and processes so that they're aligned with the ambitions and approaches that have been articulated today? So yeah, it was a day that kind of filled me with inspiration and excitement, but also just a recognition that, of course, there's still so much work to do, but wonderful that so many people can be part of the conversation with the desire and ambition and excitement, motivation to want to take that forward.
Fabulous, thank you. I think I'm going to jump in, if that's okay. Thank you, Tim, for that. I've got some, I don't know if it's a beer advert or a toothpaste advert, that sort of GM moving can get to places that others can't. There's something about bridging that empathy gap and that listening that requires all of us to be in all those different spaces all the time, listening and advocating for activity. Anyway, so if someone can find the advert, maybe that's our next advert coming up. So we're going to go into breakouts just for 5 minutes, so short and snappy, but just to give you a chance to talk to a couple of other people about what are your key reflections from today and what will you be doing going forward. It might be something you're doing differently, it might be something you're already doing, you just need to keep on doing. But 2 things, what's your key takeaway and what will you be doing after today? So you're in groups of just sort of 3, 2 to 3 people for 5 minutes, and then we'll be back here ready to close. So I'm just going to open rooms now. If anyone wants the BSL interpreter in your room, then just direct message me and I'll make sure. Welcome back. And I would just say take a moment, because now you've all got cameras on, to just scroll through as well and smile and wave at people whilst we're getting ready to say goodbye, because it's actually nice to see people's faces, even if we can't be in person. And to remember that you are all leaders within GM Moving movement, and to take that away in people that you speak to in your personal lives, in your family, your neighbours, your communities, and in your workplaces, schools, and across the system, to invite them to join in, to help share and amplify our call to action for GM Moving in action, and very purposely in action. I think we've really heard today about the real importance of all of us now individually, in our workplaces, in our communities, on our streets, in everything we do, putting these principles into action in the things that we do to enable change to happen with courage. So I think it just is for me to just say, first of all, a massive thank you to everybody. A few bits of just kind of housekeeping, I suppose, as follow on, that we will send out an email to everyone who registered with the links to the recordings, recognising not everybody got a chance to join in everything. And if you're like me, you might want to sit and absorb it all again when you get to pay attention to just the richness of what's been shared, and to think about what your learning is and what you can take away and act upon. And hopefully to connect with a few people that you've met today or heard from that have sparked your interest and where you think there is opportunity for shared action. We've had a brilliant visual storyteller. Steph has been busy scribing away throughout the day. So I'm just going to invite Steph as well to share some of her drawings, if that's okay, Steph. I'll just spotlight you. It'd be great if you're happy just for a couple of minutes to just show us and talk through what you've been doing. And we'll be sure to share all of these as well. And you know, with the invitation to use them. Fantastic. Sitting on each other's shoulders. All the things that help shape the strategy. Absolutely brilliant. There's the web, of course. We've helped definitely connect a few more threads across the web today. And a bit of dancing. Absolutely brilliant. And if anyone else in the room like me is keen to develop their own skills for visual storytelling as a great way to help translate some of our messages in different spaces, then we're keen to hold a workshop at some point to do just that. I think it'll be quite a long journey before we're ever as good as you, Steph, but this is phenomenal, really great. They keep coming. Amazing. Wow, all of this in one day. Fantastic. Thank you so much. So we'll get copies of those to send around. Thank you, Steph. Absolutely wonderful. They look absolutely brilliant. So we'll make sure we can share those around, and another way to help absorb everything we've heard today. And then just to a reminder, really, as Hayley said before, this is just the launch. It's the launch pad for what happens next. So this is just the beginning of really the next chapter in the next 10 years. So as well as today's launch, we'll be continuing with lots of listening, deep listening and convening and action. Some specific GM Moving events that are coming up around GM Moving Co-Production Week. There's also going to be a follow-on around the commitment to inclusion. There's a big active conversation in Greater Manchester on the 5th of October, and lots of other events and conversations planned to help make sure that we now deliver against our shared ambitions and continue to connect and collaborate for that collective action. Just also a reminder that this is about going into all of the rooms as well and taking the agenda that, as people said, you know, often an orphan agenda around physical activity, is all of us owning it all of the time in whatever spaces and rooms we are in, and being unapologetic about actually how important it is to help people to move in a way that works for them a little bit more every day, and how this will really help us to deliver all those shared outcomes we've talked about in terms of tackling inequality, tackling our health crisis, tackling our climate crisis, and enabling good lives for all in Greater Manchester as a great place to grow up, get on and grow old. So thank you to everyone. You're all advocates and leaders. Is there anything final you want to say, Hayley, other than please join in the walks as well this week, everybody? Any final words?
Only to say I can't wait to watch the video again and listen to that poem. And thanks again, everybody, and well done, Eve. What a fantastic day.
So I think we're going to sing you out with, so we sing you out with Sweet Carolina, or we're going for a video? I think it might be a video.
I'm not singing or dancing.
Maybe tomorrow. Thanks all.
Greater Manchester Moving is a social movement designed to help people move more and enjoy a healthier and longer life as a result. If this was a simple problem, it would look like this. In reality, this isn't a simple problem. It's a complex problem. Real lives are unpredictable and influenced by hundreds of different factors. We may feel we have personal choice, but it is very much defined by the world around us. We are tied into a system of influences that expands throughout our friends, family, our workplace, any community groups we are part of, local government, national government, and even our culture. In a complex system, if one thing changes, everything else changes in response. For example, government policy directly affects us all, but it also shifts when enough of us want it to. Constant change means that something that worked well in Didsbury last year might not work in Glodwick, or even again in Didsbury, today. To transform a system this big, unpredictable, and messy, where do we even start? This is what we ask ourselves every day at GM Moving. And our answer is everywhere. For a solution to work locally, we need a deep understanding of that area's unique strengths and what can be done. Right here, right now, to get people moving. Decisions need to be made within the community that let local people take the lead on making active lives easier. But those in charge of large institutions also need to be on board, because for local change to happen, it must be supported by high-level strategic decisions. What we do is hard to measure. Rather than how small parts of the system are causing people to change, we want to know how the system is changing as a whole. Every day, Greater Manchester Moving advocates are working with town planners, large employers, and small community groups. Our role is to spark meaningful conversations in lots of places at once, to gently and slowly influence and recruit people at every level to use their own creativity and initiative to transform things for the better. To follow what works, wherever it leads. To share the excitement when something goes right, as well as support people to learn and try again when things go wrong. It will take patience and it will take time. But we believe that by doing things differently and accepting complexity, we can create changes that get real people moving in the real world. We believe in the power of Greater Manchester's people to make positive system change happen. That together we can design moving back into life. If you believe it too and you want to be part of it, visit www.gmmoving.co.uk today.